Hola, pues muchísimas gracias. Le damos a Katie por estar con nosotros en nuestra tercera entrevista. Y bueno, pues hoy vamos a hablar de un tema importantísimo. ¿Cómo es que podemos transferir a ciertos ejecutivos de la empresa a nuestra empresa subsidiaria en Canadá? Entonces, es importante entender que este es un proceso que se tiene que hacer, desde luego, con una boda de migración. Y por eso Katie nos va a resolver muchas dudas acerca de cómo es que nosotros podemos transferir y a qué tipo de empleados podemos transferir a la subsidiaria en Canadá. Así es que, bueno, el resto de la entrevista va a ser en inglés. Les pido a todos nuestros escuchas que nos sigan en nuestras redes sociales y que si tienen alguna duda nos puedan contactar. Katie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Claudia, for having me again.
It's a pleasure. Katie, in today's global economy, businesses continually seek ways to expand their operations across borders. Canada's Intra-Company Transfer Work Permit provides a streamlined pathway for executives, managers, and specialized knowledge workers to bring their expertise to Canadian branches or subsidiaries. However, navigating the process requires carefully planning and a deep understanding of immigration regulations. To shed light on this crucial business immigration pathway, we are joined by Katie, a highly respected immigration consultant with extensive experience helping companies successfully transfer key personnel to Canada. Thank you very much, Katie. So let's begin by covering the basics. What are the key eligibility requirements for executives, managers, and specialized knowledge workers apply for an ICT work permit in British Columbia?
Great. So the intra-company transferee work permit is not limited to the province. It applies to the entire Canada, or applies to Canada. So it could be federally incorporated company as well, anywhere in Canada, including Quebec, I believe, though I'm not licensed to practice in Quebec. So there are three sort of core eligibility requirements for ICT to work. And the first one is to establish the relationship between the foreign entity and the Canadian entities. So like the name intra-company transferee suggests, intra means within the company. So in order to transfer a employee from one location to another, there must be some sort of connections between these two entities, whether it's overseas with Canada, which will allow the transfer to happen. And the second layer of criteria is that the foreign national or the person who's trying to apply for the ICT work permit must demonstrate employment history within the foreign company, right? There must be some sort of documentations to show that this person's been a full-time employee for at least 12 months, full-time, continuously, in order to demonstrate this person's knowledge and or specialized knowledge within the company, right? Because the whole point is you need to justify why this person is needed in Canada in order for this business to execute its plans, whether it's expansion, launch products, or whatnot, right? So that's the second criteria. And the third one is that the position offered in Canada must be comparable to the one held in home country, right? So it can be, say, if the person is a vice president in a home country, but here is only doing engineer position, that's not going to work. So the position needs to be comparable in order for the transfer to make sense because you're transferring to a lateral movement, right? Transferring to an equivalent position in Canada and not a stepping downward, even a higher position. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. And for foreign companies looking to expand into Canada, what steps must they take to establish a Canadian branch or subsidiary? And what documentation is required to facilitate intra-company transfers?
So if you look at the program guidelines of the ICT program, it requires the Canadian entity to be a branch or subsidiary or affiliate to uh, the companies in the home country. Now, this is more of a question for the business lawyer who is doing the incorporation. But normally, say the difference would be like a branch office. We will ask the business lawyer to do the extra provincial registration for the company. And if it's a subsidiary or an affiliate, it usually means provincial or federal incorporation for the company to happen. And which one makes more sense? We usually let the client decide or let the lawyer to make that determination if there are special requirements. In terms of the documents that are needed for ICT application. Usually for incorporation, we need the incorporation certificate or the articles of incorporation, and we need proof of the relationship between the foreign and the Canadian entities. So we'll draft a document that shows these two entities are actually connected and what the relationships are. And also we will prepare a business plan to show the Canadian operations. Usually included in that is a staffing proposal and a financial projection, usually lasting from 3 years to 5 years, depending on the context of the business plan. And also, if it's a brick and mortar business, we require clients to have at least documents to show that there will be a physical location in Canada. Um, where the foreign workers will work, and also a very simple organizational chart that includes the job descriptions of these foreign nationals. So which will include the types of work that the foreign national would undertake in Canada, responsibilities, if there are projects that are in mind, we would provide contracts, perhaps there were contracts signed between Canadian vendors and the home office, that type of things. The idea is to make the application as persuasive and as convincing as possible because you don't want the IRCC to come back and request for additional documents, which could cause delay. And for a lot of these companies, delay is never good, especially it's already taking the IRCC a very long time to process applications. But the good thing is that for most of the ICT application we've submitted, usually you can hear back from the IRCC within 3 months or so, depending on the country. But usually that's fast for Canadian
Okay, three,
immigration.
3 months is fast. Okay.
3 months is fast. Anything less than 6 months, I'm happy. So.
Wow. Okay. And despite its advantages, ICT applications can face challenges. What are the most common reasons applications get rejected? And how can businesses ensure they submit a strong, well-prepared applications?
Right. So that is actually an excellent question, right? Otherwise, because the whole point of going through the steps is to make sure that you get it approved. And for most of the ICT application that get rejected is because the documents are too vague. Say if you're just proposing a company that would take place in Canada and say, for example, if a computer engineer position, right, you're transferring this senior computer engineer from home country to here, and yet you don't really have any projects for this engineer to do. That's suspicious, right? Because likely you're paying this person well over $100,000 a year for a position that you can't really clearly define, right? Because you do need to keep in mind that work permits, especially ICT work permits, uh, it's not something that you apply and it will be given. You need to convince the IRCC that this job is genuine and that you are really in Canada to do something, right? Whatever that is. So you need to have a strong proposal for what you intend to do. And it usually requires a very detailed and thorough job descriptions. And you need to have a business plan, right? There is no there's no business without a business plan, right? You should have a very clear objective of what you intend to achieve in Canada, and also the financial documents, how you're gonna pay for whatever it is that you want to achieve in Canada, including the salary of this foreign worker. So that's usually needed. And also you need to make sure that all the documents included in the package shows the clear connections between the Canadian entity and the home country, right? So to avoid a rejection, you have to do the opposite of what we just said, right? Everything needs to look consistent, right? You're building a narrative for what this foreign national intends to do in Canada. So whatever you do needs to make sure it sticks to the stories, right? So that's usually what we're trying to do is to make sure that the client's application is strong and we look at all the weaknesses in the application to make sure that our clients don't run into any refusals.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense, Katie. Thank you very much. So many business owners weigh their options when considering migration pathways. How does the ICT work permit compare to others business immigration program such as LMIA or the startup visa?
So we mentioned in the previous or previous chat is that owner-operator LMIA no longer exists, is replaced by the C11 Canadian benefits work permit. So the so now I think we're just comparing the ICT work permit with the startup visa program. Now the key difference is that ICT work permit is work permit first, permanent residency second. Because once the foreign national is in Canada, he or she can accumulate Canadian work experience, which can then be used to apply for permanent residency. You do receive bonus points for having Canadian work experience, but this is not guaranteed because don't forget, in order to apply for permanent residency, you need to accumulate enough points to be invited to apply for permanent residency later on, right? But with the startup visa program, the PR application is part of the program already, right? It's PR oriented as opposed to work permit oriented. So that really is the key difference is that the the mandates of these two programs are completely different. One is for work permit first, the other one is permanent residency first. So, but then don't forget, in order to apply for the startup visa program, you usually need the support of an incubator or designated entities in Canada to apply for PR and work permit later on. So these are the things that we do have clients consider if, you know, before they start this entire step. For some, it makes more sense to do the startup visa program. For some, really, they just need a work permit for the foreign workers they want to bring on a temporary basis, and then that will be the end of the application.
Wow, thank you very much for clarifying this, Katie. And finally, for professionals seeking long-term opportunities in Canada, can an ICT work permit lead to permanent residency? And what steps should applicants take to maximize their chances of staying in the country permanently?
Right. So like what we've been talking about, ICT work permit does lead to PR options later on. So the Canadian work accumulated while being on a work permit does add bonus points to the express entry profile. Or even if you want to do the BCPMP application, you still get bonus points for having Canadian work experience. Um, but another factors that you also need to consider is the foreign nationals, the education, right? Also the English proficiency. These are all the factors that will affect the overall calculation of this person's profile, whether it's on the express entry or BCPMP. So these really are the things that we have to plan ahead. If this person wishes to use ICT to get work permit first and then permanent residency later, but if in the beginning we already know that no matter how many years this person works in Canada, he or she will never accumulate enough points under express entry or BCPMP. You might not want to start this whole process in the first place, right? You might be better off just go ahead with the startup visa program
Wow.
because there's no points calculation and then also the language requirement is lower, right? So these are the things that we have to help clients consider ahead of time to make sure that we don't do something that is not necessary, especially these applications are not cheap, right? Whether it's our service fee or even to sign a lease agreement with corporate, you know, realtor. These are the things that are coming out of, these are the money that are coming out of the client's pocket, right? So we make sure that it's a money well spent and we don't waste any resources.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I agree. Thank you very much, Katie. Well, thank you for offering such valuable insights and helping us better understand the strategic potential of Canada's ICT program. Your guidance is truly appreciated. So, Katie, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for clarifying many things, challenges that all of business owners have and need to understand better to bring their companies to Canada. And yeah, gracias a todos ustedes por que nos están escuchando y bueno, pues les invito a que pongan el traductor en la opción de YouTube para que puedan entender en español qué es lo que Kairi nos dice, pero al mismo tiempo también los invito que si tienen alguna duda, bueno, nosotros podemos directamente resolverlas. Meritia acompaña al empresario en Canadá y fuera de Canadá para entender un poco más cuáles serían esas personas que les estuvieran acompañando en el proceso de migración a Canadá. Así es que pues los invitamos a que nos sigan en nuestras redes sociales y si tienen alguna duda nos contacten. Muchísimas gracias. Katie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia.